Okay, why don't we get started? My name is David Sherman. I'm a professor at UC Merced, and we have Sarah Kalori and Aaron Romanowski here as part of our seminar organizing committee here, and we'd like to welcome you to the first talk in our series, Science by Diverse Scientists, for the spring semester here. And so this series is part of the CalBridge program, which is joint between the California State University System and University of California. And this seminar series is also sponsored by the Research Corporation for Science Advancement. This week, we are very pleased to have Dr. Michael Williams joining us. He is an application specialist at Boston Electronics. And he is also the Optica ambassador for 2021. I learned recently this is a new name for the Optical Society of America, or OSA, which I have been familiar with before. So a little bit about Dr. Williams. So he got a Bachelor of Science in Physics in 2009 from Morehouse College, and a Master's in Materials Science in 2012 from Fisk University. Then he went on to do a PhD in optics from Delaware State University in 2018. Apart from his research, he's been on several committees related to new leadership in optics and photonics and racial diversity and inclusion, and has been involved in science policy interacting with Congress. And now he's working for Boston Electronics and is also part of the Blazar group for CalBridge here. And so we're very pleased to have Dr. Williams speaking with us today, and turn things over to you.
All right. Thank you, David, for that introduction. Hello. I'll be speaking to everybody in the afternoon because I know we were 3 hours, difference between you guys. I'm over here in Boston right now. So, but anyway, good afternoon, everybody. I look forward to sharing with you all my story, particularly my journey in becoming a PhD in optics and to where I am at right now. And this particular topic regarding continuing the change of equity has always been near and dear to my heart. And it's going to be very potent. There's going to be some hard-hitting questions that I'm going to be asking all of us today. So I look forward to hearing some of your questions at the end of this. And hopefully we can all grow and learn from this as a result. So I'm going to share my screen and we're just going to get things started. Wait, it's probably the wrong screen. So
yeah, that was presentation view.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, do you see this?
Yeah, that looks good.
Okay, and I'm going to do this Control Alt H, and everybody is clear? Do you see any bars?
Looks good.
Okay, good. All right, so let's get everything started. So, as I said, the topic is continuing the search for equity, advancing the need for more representation of Black scientists in optics and photonics. Today, I'll be introducing myself to you all. My HBCU road to the PhD, which is unconventional road to the PhD, is to optics for most people. Going through my matriculation, if you will, through Morehouse College, Fisk University, and Delaware State University. I'll be talking about the Optica Ambassador Program, which I was privileged to be a part of in 2021. And what led up to me joining the ambassador program, which is largely of the article that was published entitled "In Search of Equity," which was a result of the 2020 racial protests during that summer. And I'm going to explain how all of the hashtags that were that had emerged from that time really spurred a lot of Black scientists to really share their stories out in the open without fear of retribution, because it was called for at that time. And what Optica has been doing, or we've been doing as a result of that wave of expectancy for corporations to react to those racial protests. So just a lot of things I'm going to be sharing what Optica has been doing as a result. And I'd like to conclude with some questions if you have them at the end of this presentation. So first and foremost, I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you've never been to Philadelphia, I highly suggest you go visit. At least one time. There's so many things you can see and learn about Philly, and probably the most the famous thing going on today about Philadelphia, other than the Philadelphia Eagles, is this is where Will Smith came from, and we all know the whole song from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and so here am I at one location in Philadelphia. Is called Love Park, and this particular image about myself, it's just a microcosm of who I am. I just love life. I love people, love to be generous. One of my mantras is to love God and to love people. So this is just who I am. Not many people really see this in a scientist, but this is just I just see myself as a unique person that I can bring to the sciences. So here in Philadelphia, there was a museum still is a museum called the Franklin Institute Science Museum, and this is where I particularly began my start as a scientist. Particularly, there was a program there for teens. It was called PACTS, and it stands for Partnerships for Achieving Careers in Technology and Science. There, I was able to be what is called an explainer on the floor and go through the entire museum and do all kinds of demonstrations. I would explain the exhibits to people who would visit. There was one particular exhibit that is like the main focal point of the museum, and is this one, the gigantic heart that you're able to walk through. You're able to see all the ways that the blood flows throughout the heart. You're to walk through each four of the chambers of the heart. And that's always been just a crowd pleaser, if you will. So this particular museum is a hands-on science museum. That means you can go all over the museum and touch all the exhibits and not get any trouble. And there, I really I would say there in the museum, really creating within a love for science communication and research. And so now what I'm doing is I'm present in Boston, Massachusetts, and where I work there, or what I work for, is Boston Electronics. If you are familiar with that, is a photonics distribution company that will enable customers to develop and manufacture superior products, and be able to help people with cutting edge research by providing them with a broad range of advanced electro-optical solutions and quality application support. These are particular partners that we work with to make all of that happen. We primarily support customers across the United States and Canada, but we also support international customers, especially where there is no distribution established in that particular region. So we pride ourselves for being very versatile in our experience and be able to help those who may need particular expertise in whatever research they're planning to do. And so this is just like the next step of my journey. Clearly, it's not going to be the last, but I really am appreciative for working here because I'm able to work with people who have been in the industry for more than 40 years. So it is a completely awesome experience. So let's travel back in time. So after I left Philadelphia, when I graduated high school, I went to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia. If you're unfamiliar with Morehouse College, it is the nation's only Black college, a secondary education for African American males. Particularly, there are a lot of famous people that went to Morehouse College. Most notably is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and also Spike Lee and Samuel L. Jackson, if you didn't know that. But there is an ideal in Morehouse regarding the men that come here and want to be established as a professional with class and dignity. The ideal is called the Morehouse Man. And so the Morehouse Man was the epitome of excellence in all facets of life, which includes academics, professional aspirations, family devotion, community service, and leadership. And the Morehouse Man was the embodiment of integrity, honesty, respect, resourcefulness, poise, and self-discipline. And particularly, it was made so that students' lives would be transformed by these standards. And there in Morehouse College, I first witnessed the first images, if you will, of scientists and engineers that looked like me and could also embrace Black culture and quality science at the same time. And so here is Graves Hall, is one of our main buildings in Morehouse. Right there is the grave and the statue of one of the greatest presidents of Morehouse College, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays. And the image on the right is a statue of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in front of the Dr. Martin Luther King International Chapel. And here am I at one of our annual homecoming events wearing my Morehouse Gab, and I still have that jersey. So next stop, we have Fisk University. Now, this particular stop is really, really significant for me because I was involved with the Fisk Vanderbilt Master's PhD Bridge program, and there were a couple of people that are involved with Cal Bridge that have been a part of this program as well, so they can attest how valuable this program is to our particular walks of life, and particular success stories, if you will. I was there from 2009 to 2011. The Bridge program was created to help improve demographic representation of underrepresented minorities in STEM. And particularly with Fisk University being an HBCU, is the #1 producer of Black students earning their master's degrees. And so there I was able to witness genuine people in science who care for your holistic well-being. It wasn't just about the grades for them. They really care about your mental health. And that's what I really appreciated about this, because they really sought out to see if I was doing well and how they can help me to succeed in all areas of life. So there am I in my first year, if you will. And there will always be, brochures and advertisements about the Bridge program. And there am I in my Morehouse suit. So that's one of the things I just always a surprise for me. I get to have people take my picture when I've gotten into a master's program. So that was pretty cool for me. And so last stop is the doctoral degree in optics. I did it under the direction of my PhD advisor, Dr. Renu Chapathi. Doing a PhD in Delaware State University is really, really unique because it's the only HBCU that offers a PhD in optics. And it is the only HBCU that has a state-of-the-art optics facility. There I did my dissertation on the investigations of the linear, nonlinear, and fluorescent optical properties of nanodiamonds for photonics applications. If you want for me to explain it more, I can do that at the end of the talk today. But just to give you an image of the actual building, it was a brand new optics facility that was built during the time that I was there. I was able to move from the previous lab that I was into the new building. So it was a brand new experience for me. And the other building, we had all kinds of problems. We had flooding with the AC unit all the time. So being in a state-of-the-art building was a new experience and a step up regarding our legitimacy on being on the HBCU campus. And there I was able to go through different internships and different experiences. Like for this one, I was involved with the Optica SPIE congressional visits, where I lobbied on Capitol Hill regarding the National Photonics Initiative. And also, being at DSU allowed me to go to NASA for a summer, where I was able to win the award of excellence for engineering for my poster. So I had plenty of great experiences being at DSU. So if you're unfamiliar with the historical I'll say, power of HBCUs as a whole. Here are the reasons why HBCUs were created in the first place. So prior to the civil rights movement, so Black people were universally considered intellectually inferior and socially and morally depraved, which honestly is still being echoed today. And so the thing is, because there were state laws, state and local laws that enabled racial segregation and discrimination, that means that people that look like me be um, able to have access to any of the colleges that had all these particular programs. So in a response, the following the Civil War, many Black and some white people created and established several colleges for Black education, academic achievement, and scholarship. And so having a road like this for me to go through the HBCU road, it just is very unique, but very pivotal, especially in this day and age. And so here are my graduation photos. Here I am in Morehouse College, and there's my graduation from Fisk, and lastly at DSU. So the journey was very long and very arduous, but yeah, I really appreciated all the things that I went through because it made me who I am today. So next on my journey, it involves being an ambassador for Optica. And particularly, Optica is pretty much, it prides itself as like the #1 international optics society in the world. And so just give me a few minutes I could tell you the essence of the rebranding of Optica from being known as the Optical Society. So, so with over 100 years of history, Optica has prided itself, as I said, being the leading professional association for photonics. It publishes quality research, it enables inspiring interactions at meetings and networking events, and it prides itself on having dedicated resources to help optics and photonics professionals amplify their career. And so Optica is more than just a membership organization. They are a prideful source, a trusted source for timely, relevant, and high quality information for all types of optics and physics and photonics professionals. We enable the community to build quality relationships with colleagues, customers, and leaders from around the world. And so Optica has had a critical role on the expansion of optics and photonics. So there's been a growth in light science-based technology within the last 5 years, and that growth has been evidenced in looking at it at a growth of 24%. And so we are now part of a $500 billion global industry. And as the field has grown, so has the society. We now offer student chapters all over the world, over 400 student chapters in more than 60 countries. So the progress has been remarkable. And today we engage with more than 400,000 people across 93% of the globe. And so Optica's goals as the leading forum for life science and technology are: #1, upholding excellence whatever is found in the world; #2, empowering discovery and innovation by including talented, driven, dedicated, hardworking people in the community from across the world. And also, we also want to advocate for those in our field to ensure our community grows and our society survives. And so one of the things that I really am appreciative about Optica is being a part of the ambassador program, which allows me to share my experience, share the things that I've been through, and particularly my background in historically Black colleges is a unique road that a lot of people do not realize. So I'm able to provide a different perspective, a different lens, if you will, about different things that can help people wherever they need help with. And so being a lecturer, I'm able to start traveling to different sections all around the world. I'm really excited about that. And I'm also to network with professionals and Nobel laureates that I never had the opportunity to meet prior to this. So this is opening a whole new world for me. So if you are interested in being an ambassador, just try out the Optica website, seeing what's available. I think the next round, I think that for this year, this round has closed regarding the applications, but for next year, I highly suggest you consider it. And so again, we're looking at like the reasons why I chose this particular route. And honestly, prior to 2020, I did not consider being an ambassador at all. Because quite honestly, I did not see anybody that looked like me being represented in that particular program. But what happened during 2020 really changed my mind. It was regarding what happened with George Floyd, and the ambassador sent out a it's not so it's a general statement, but overall statement that represented everybody in the program. And I read, science lives in a society affected by and in many ways built upon systemic racism. As OSA ambassadors, we are committed to fighting for justice, equality, integrity, and inclusivity in the scientific community and beyond. We recognize we need to do more by sustainably supporting, amplifying, and promoting Black scientists, engineers, and students. Black Lives Matter. This was huge for me, very huge, because I never seen any type of society be this bold in saying Black Lives Matter like this. And also regarding the article that I referenced before, it was written in the response of the death of George Floyd, which prompted considerable public soul searching by US companies regarding the inadequacy in their own efforts regarding equity and inclusion. And this is something that I really was striking for me. So there was a study done that was in the article, and it's called the Diversity Innovation Paradox. And it says that demographically underrepresented students in PhD science programs, they tend to innovate at higher rates than majority students, but yet only to deeply entrenched biases, their contributions tend to be discounted and devalued in the same settings, preventing them from getting scientific traction. So this is something that has not been really put in the forefront, because it's almost like the most popular secret about Black students or Black scientists moving forward in their career. But this is really pivotal. There was also another study in 2020 that reads, biology and physics professors from 8 large public US universities were asked to read one of 8 identical CVs depicting a hypothetical doctoral graduate applying for a postdoc in their field. They were rate them for competence, hireability, and likability. The only thing that was manipulated in the CV was the candidate's name, and it was used to manipulate race, whether it be Asian, Black, Latinx, or white, and the gender. So only the race and the gender were manipulated. All other aspects of the CV were held constant. All of the accolades, all the accomplishments, they were the same across all 8 CVs. The physics faculty rated the Asian and the white candidates as more competent and hireable than the Black and the Latinx candidates. And it showed that in the interaction between gender and race, those dynamics, it showed that Black women and Latinx men and women were rated the lowest in hireability compared to all others. So this is going to be something that needs to be said. Science has a racism problem. I cannot emphasize that enough. And so this was from the Cell editorial team back in 2020. And they said that they were part of the problem. They are 13 scientists on this editorial team, but none of them are Black. And it's like, it should not have been the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery to get people to speak and to act and to actively be anti-racist, in this case, anti-Black. And so it's just really, really important to understand that these three people had to die for people to really wake up, because it seems like sometimes Black people feel that we are expendable to people, especially in realms like these in the scientific community. We're always walking on eggshells. We always have to prove our importance, our significance, our relevance. And we always have to be at a particular position or a particular attitude, if you will, because if people do not like us, we can easily lose our jobs or our positions. So a lot of people walk with anxiety and fear because they feel that we are expendable here one day, gone the next. But the thing about what happened in 2020, it made people to really look at themselves. And you see that the protests that happened as a result of these three murders, it resonated all over the world. And that's explosive behavior didn't just spontaneously occur. This was the result of a racist system of ethnic hatred against dark people of color that has figuratively had their knee on our necks for far too long. And so it's one thing to say that what happened to George Floyd affected the United States because honestly, it's local. Other countries may not feel what we feel. But you have to look at what actually happened. People protested for George Floyd, not just in all 50 states of the United States, but in other places that do not have a large Black population there. It's just really, really mind-blowing. You have protests in South Korea, in Germany, in Iran even. It just is really, really, it's just like a really like a powerful time just to witness all of this. But I want you to understand that what happened to George Floyd is not necessarily just for people who are uneducated. This is Dr. Lawrence Crosby. In 2015, he was a PhD student at the time, and he was racially profiled by a woman who thought he was burglarizing his own car. Well, she thought he was trying to break into someone's car, but it was his own car. She followed him from his apartment to the lab, to Northwestern University lab of engineering that he was working in at night. She followed him. She called the police. The police told him to get on the ground. He got out of the car with his hand raised. He wasn't threatening anybody, but he was still tackled by the police because he did not immediately get on the ground. And so he was beaten, falsely arrested, and ultimately charged for disobeying an officer and resisting arrest. And this was all for just trying to get into his own car. But thankfully, the judge acquitted him. He filed a lawsuit, and they settled for $1.25 million. So unfortunately, stuff like this can happen to anybody, regardless of your educational status. And there's a literal fear amongst the African-American community regarding being killed by the police by just walking down the street doing nothing. And it's just really, really sad to see data sets like this. The lifetime risk for being killed by the police is at a significant higher level than any other demographic here in America. But unfortunately, this also goes into the inequities in science. And so we look at different occupations that we look at for scientists and engineers, and this was only in 2015, but you see that white men and white women are far in the majority. The percentage of Black men are only 3%. The percentage for only Black women are only 2%. If you look at the degrees that many African Americans earn, you could say that the majority of them focus in computer science. But if you look at the trend for physics, which is in the red, it follows down a downward trend and it almost evens out into a static level. So things really need to be done. And even looking at the difference between other minorities, like our Hispanic demographic, we look at how their trend is rising up even more while African American and Black demographics are still on the static level, which really has not changed since the late 90s. And so we also look at the physics degrees that were earned by demographics in 2019. And this applies to me because I earned my PhD in 2018. So I'm in this data set right here. So I'm looking at myself earning, I'm part of the less than 3% Black people who have earned the PhDs in physics, while we have the full white demographic taking up the large majority of the physics degrees on this bar graph. But I also want to just look at the numerical values here. So also, I'm comparing this to the 2019 Census Bureau. And so for African Americans to make up only 13.4% of the population in the United States, for me, I am part of the less than 1% of all physics PhDs. And it's just all around the world. And so if you just look at the United States physics PhDs, I only fit in that 1%. And so we can go through the data sets all day, but let's continue on with this, with understanding why some of these things happen. Well, number one, there are hardly any support systems for Black academics. It's almost like we don't necessarily have in particular programs or system to help particular people who want to go into academia to be a professor. It's like they're on their own to try to make up something, try to create something for their fellow Black students. It stems a form of exclusion, like there's certain people can only get so far because of the resources that they have. Also, we need to point out that systemic poverty is a problem in the United States, especially in the inner cities. For me, coming from Philadelphia, it was a uphill battle for me to get the right classes, to go to the right school, to get to the to have a support system to help me in that. And regardless of the fact that in my grade school levels, I was always making A's. I love learning. I love learning math. I love learning science. But the culture in that was saying that, I'm better than everybody because I make straight A's. And so there's a lot of like a mental issue regarding that. But regarding with the education that other students get, it produces a lack of preparation to take these college courses to prepare them for the next level. And so you also look at physics being like an elitist type of field that only the top tier people in the United States get to go and do physics. And quite honestly, people think this way because of implicit bias. Reason being, when you get the PhD, when you get the degrees, when you get the position, all of a sudden, a lot of Black people think that, they feel that their colleagues do not want them to be there. It's almost as if they're saying that, oh, you're just a placeholder, or someone else better than you deserves your position rather than you. Regardless of my accolades, regardless of my achievements, people automatically think that someone else should be in my place, mainly because I am Black. And what this probably represents is, like being non-successful. And also we can look at the lack of access to opportunities due to sisters purposely excluding Black academics from succeeding. So if you are unfamiliar with Nikole Hannah-Jones, Nikole Hannah-Jones is a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter who covered racial justice for the New York Times. And she was denied tenure at UNC. And she rightfully earned that position. And the only reason they offered it back to her was because of weeks of protests by the students and all the news headlines about the scandal that caused immense pressure. But the thing about it, she didn't have to fight to get something that she rightfully earned. Her credentials over 20 years of investigative journalism should be enough. But at the end of the day, she went to Howard University, which is another historically Black college in Washington, D.C. She went there instead because she knew her work there will be celebrated and wanted. And so when stuff like this happens, it produces a sense of invincibility. Like, I don't see the typical, the particular news stories, the success stories that would encourage me to move forward. I mean, because of what happened to Nicole Hannah Jones. And we also need to point out the emotional, mental, and psychological microaggressions that people go through. And these are different phrases that I have heard in my particular career. Why do you care what happens out there? Meaning, why do you care when all the Black boys were being murdered? When Freddie Gray was murdered in Baltimore, my advisor asked me, why do you care what happens out there? You should focus on the science. That means, you know what that tells me? That tells me you had no empathy for me. You had no empathy about my well-being as a Black man in order to do the science, because in your mind, science is colorblind. But let's look at that and for a second. You're saying that you're not racist, you don't see color, you're colorblind. That means you do not acknowledge the harassment, the pain, and the strain of being Black in America. And I also have heard of this. You're very articulate for a Black man. You speak so eloquently for a Black man. That means in your mind, you initially had low expectations of how well I could speak, of my articulation, my professionalism, and my education. It just means that you had initially a low expectation about who I am, and you never even spoke to me. You just assumed that I was beneath your level, mainly because you didn't think that I could be at your level. And so there are other resources out there that will legitimize these claims. And so even to look at what happened also as a result, last year, there was shut down STEM, strife for Black lives, shut down academia. These were initiatives that were made to get people to stop what they're doing and make an honest look at yourself and seeing if you are particularly racist in anything you do, or if you are enabling people to be anti-Black. And so a lot of people will say, well, this is still all hearsay, or this is quote unquote critical race theory. Can you substantiate these claims? So what I want to do is go into what's called the Black and Ivory stories. Black and Ivory was a hashtag on Twitter that Sade Davis and Joy Melody Woods in academia, they wanted to give the eyewitness testimony of the abuse that people will go through just for being there in the positions. A former senior professor asked me to stay after a faculty meeting. When others left, he said he had seen a documentary about Black women sewing on other people's hair, and he yanked mine and said, "Is this real?" Campus police will follow Black male grad students around campus. When they graduated to physically accosting us, we complained. The dean of the medical school said that we should wear ties so that they would know we were students and not custodial staff. Being Black in academia is constantly seeing people who excluded you promote themselves as leaders in inclusion and diversity, is watching people use the success you have achieved in spite of them as evidence that they support Black people. Feeling dread every time you have to ask a professor to re-explain something out of fear of being looked like you're dumb, or being met with, maybe this isn't the right field for you, while your peers receive enthusiastic responses for asking the same questions. Being Black in the Ivory is being told by a senior professor, of course NSF will fund your career award. You are a Black woman. In one fell swoop, invalidating my hard work, expertise, the positioning in the academy, and the recognition that I'd earned. Is being invited to give a talk at great financial cost to the host department, only to be mistaken for a PhD student coming for an interview. It's finally mustering the courage to tell your advisor that you're experiencing microaggressions in the research group, only for your advisor to tell you that the group members didn't mean it, or you're just over exaggerating. And this is a non-Black person just explaining what his friend from grad school had gone through that made him drop out of his fourth year because of the advisor. And this is the response. What you're reading has two filters that suggest the situation may be even worse than it appears. One, survivor bias. You're seeing the people who stayed, and two, publication bias, the stories that feel safe to share publicly. Now, this is personal for me because me being in Boston, this is a person who was at Harvard. Linnell Williams said that a week after my acceptance letter to the PhD program at Harvard, students made sure to inform me that it was because there were no Black women in physics. And the response to that is saying that I have almost never accomplished something without someone telling me I was the diversity hire, as if my application materials are just a picture of my face. Now, this particular post is really offensive. Do you see that this was published in a medical journal, and it was talked about the medical interventions that takes less than 8 minutes and 46 seconds. They never mentioned anything about George Floyd. If you need a context, Derek Chauvin, the police officer, had his neck on George Floyd's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And this particular article, this particular journal entry did not mention anything about George Floyd nor Black Lives Matter or anything about the racial protests at that time. And so this is really things that really, this is really, really upsetting. Another one, I was told, well, you got that because you're Black in response to winning an Intel fellowship. And she was saying, no, because I got it because my CV was straight. And this is another offensive journal, paper. I'm sorry, I'm just really flustered right now. Seeing this, part of being Black is being Black in the ivory is the trauma of finding scientific justifications for your oppression. This article concludes that darker pigmented people are more aggressive, sexual, and have a lower IQ. And after this, after my lecture about the racist exploitation of Henrietta Lacks, a white man claiming to be a retired doctor from Johns Hopkins, proclaimed that I was wrong because patients in the color ward got better care because we tested experimental treatments on them. Being Black in the ivory is being required to do unpaid labor, getting colleagues to represent their anti-Blackness, doing diversity work because your program won't hire diverse faculty, mentoring other people of color students. Meanwhile, your white colleagues just get to focus on their science. It's being told you need to do something about your hair because that's professional. So that is professional. Working at my desk in my office and being asked, can you come empty the trash? And also getting the question, did you come up with this during the Q&A in my research talk? This person is on Twitter. Her name is Raven, Dr. Raven, the science maven. She describes on the first day of work, someone in the chemistry department physically blocked her from getting her mail in the faculty mailroom. And they threatened to call the police on her because they thought that she was a student trying to steal mail, and they did not believe her faculty ID was real. They said, well, you don't look like you work here. And another instance where she describes showing up early for work and being handed a mop and a broom, and someone telling her she had come so early to clean the floors, and they thought she was the new custodian, but she had on a suit. Custodians do not wear suits on their first day on the job. And the question is, why didn't I say anything? When we experience systematic mistreatment and oppression for our entire lives for generations, these events occur and we internalize the trauma. Fighting back and using your voice is a learned process for some. Many still not have found their voice. So this is Cassandra Estetover. She's an evolutionary and developmental biologist at Harvard, and she's talking about how the reports of police brutality alongside the systemic racism in their field tests her will to stay in science. And for the aspect of timer is going to go to the next slide, but I want you to look at this one. This is my friend, Dr. Bianca Jones Marlin. She's a neuroscientist in Columbia University in New York City. She has a PhD in neuroscience, and she is reaching out to her fellow Black academics regarding everything that she has gone through, so that these other people can have just another person to talk to. So I want you all to listen to this, and I want you to just allow the words to really flow in your mind right now.
Hi, my name is Bianca Jones Marlin. I'm a postdoc in neuroscience, and I want to speak to my Black scientist colleagues, grad students, trainees, the Black students in the community. I want you to know, and this is because I feel like there have been times where I need to be told this, that your presence in science is important, that your purpose in science is seen, and that you are essential in your communities, in the scientific community, in the world as a whole, to make the world a better place. I remember maybe 2 years ago, during another obvious blatant stream of racial injustice, that I had no one to reach out to that I thought would understand just the heaviness of the situation. And I had to sit through lab meeting while people were happy-go-lucky when we found out earlier today that someone was murdered unjustly. A Black person was murdered unjustly. And there's no comment said. I felt like if I was to bring it up, I would be burdening other people with something that was specific to me and not specific to us as a whole, as a country as a whole. And that feeling is heavy, and I think it's unnecessary, which is why I want to make myself available to you. Send me a message. I'm here to hear your stories. I'm here to hear the way you feel about the situation. I'm here to sit with you in silence about the situation. I know it's harder now because we're not sitting in the back of a conference room feeling this heaviness and being able to slunk down in our seat and ignore it. We're feeling it on Zoom when people are looking at our face and we're looking at theirs and talking about the easiness of their day when we have this extra burden, this transgenerational burden on us. So I'm here to hear your stories because I get it. Because I know that your stories aren't a paranoia. Because I've been there. So your stories of being locked out of your faculty housing because someone decides you don't live there, and so they close the door in your face until security comes. I know because I've been there. When people decide to videotape you for no reason and call you aggressive because of something someone said behind you or something that has nothing to do with you, and they think that they can put that on you. It's not being paranoid. I know because I've been there. When people directly attack you or question your presence because of the fact that you're Black and for no other reason, and not looking at your resume and not looking at other reasons why you are there in science to do excellent work, but making an assumption based on your appearance. It's not a paranoia. I get it because I've been there. And so I want to make myself available to you, to be there for you. And to those who are well above and beyond where I am in science as a postdoc, I would love to hear from you too, because I think it is essential to have that community right now, to know that, yeah, that we're important, that we matter.
And I want everybody to really brace what she was talking about and just to hear her tears. And if this is making you very uncomfortable, please embrace that, because I have lived being uncomfortable my entire life. Not knowing if people will respect me as a scientist because I'm Black, not knowing if people would even think about calling the police on me if I show up at a conference because they never seen a 6'3" tall Black man with a PhD in optics. This image that you see right here, this is what she has to go through on a constant basis. Not just the fact that, you know, she has to go through all these hurdles, but people saying that it's the same distance. that we're in this land of opportunity. Everybody has equal access to all of these opportunities. There's a lot of things that Black people go through that you do not see. And if I can just follow up with this one last tweet from, honestly, from Nicole Hannah-Jones. This is the psychological bomb of the racial caste system in America. If you're Black and couldn't overcome every obstacle to pull yourself up, it's because you're lazy and did not want to work hard. If you're Black and if you manage to be successful, it's because of affirmative action and you did not earn it. And so this is something that needs to change regarding the systems of people holding other people down mainly because of the color of the skin and what that expectation means in the minds of people. But that's why I truly am really appreciative of organizations like Optica, and during this time it was still called the Optical Society, but they put out a statement regarding what happened to George Floyd, and they were really implicit of that, and I really appreciate it. Following with that, they really are supportive in creating change. They developed the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Rapid Action Committee as a response. It was immediately done during the summer. I really appreciate that. There was an established scholarship made for exclusively for young Black scientists and engineers called the Amplified Scholarship. And I really am so thankful of this because this will provide so much support, so much opportunity that a lot of people behind me, they're able to now see as a reality. And also I made a podcast with Optica regarding my experiences. I interviewed a fellow Black scientists, how we overcame doubt, adversity, and challenges. I hope they release that soon. I really want you all to hear those stories, but also hear some other success stories. Dr. Christine Hendon, she's an associate professor at Columbia University. Dr. Desiree Whitmore, she's a physics communicator in the Exploratorium in San Francisco. We have Dr. Mayumatu Bell. She's at Johns Hopkins. We have one of my fellow colleagues, Dr. Joshua Burrow. He's a postdoc at Brown. My friend George, he's in the UK, and he's doing a lot of things that many people need to see. This is my personal friend, Dr. Kimani Toussaint. He's also from Philadelphia. I just found out a couple of days ago, and he's also at Brown. He's actually Joshua Burrow's PI. So there are a lot of great Black people doing great work in optics that need to be heard, that need to be shown, they need to be celebrated, and that the work needs to be put on the forefront so we can be peer reviewed and peer reviewed well. So here are the things you can do regarding everything I've talked about today. Let's talk about how to move forward. What can we do? First, you have to care about your colleagues' well-being. We can no longer be islands anymore. We have to have people to be there for us and to listen to us. When we tell you of different things that happen, do not disregard it because it does not happen to you. It doesn't matter if it doesn't happen to you. It doesn't happen to the majority of people. Still listen to what we have to say. Believe our stories and do not disregard our experiences. Educate yourself on the rich history of Black optical scientists and HBCUs. Since this is Black History Month, if you were to follow my Twitter page, I have a Twitter page called Black in Optics, which is at Black in well, actually, the title is Black in Photonics. The @ is Black in Optics. I'll show you everything in the final slide, but I'm showing different people of history that has made pivotal contributions to optics over the years that many people do not know or do not recognize or acknowledge. We're talking about acknowledgement. Acknowledge your own biases and work earnestly to correct them. We all have them. We have to be honest with ourselves. We have to be able to correct them and just put in the forefront saying this is wrong. Please fund us, support us, and cite our work. We want to be challenged. We want to be in the arena just like everybody else. We want to be nominated for high positions with equal pay as your own. Also stand up for us, speak up for us, and advocate for us behind and in public, behind closed doors and in public. And also, as I said before, just don't invite us to speak about diversity. Invite us to talk about our research as you would for a respected colleague. And also, please do not stay silent when you see someone doing wrong to another person. Please do something about it. And also, there are other opportunities being developed right now. There's a Pair Up grant that was given by the American Society for Cell Biology, is working to implement a new model for creating a diverse scientific workforce in black imaging, or not necessarily black imaging, but just the imaging in general. They want to support and build collaborative research teams of black imaging scientists. And so this is a brand new grant. It was just a release last year. This is really, really awesome. And also regarding the PhD program, the Fisk Vanderbilt PhD Bridge program, the American Institutes of Research, they released a report on that. And it shows that African-American students who go through the program, including myself, are 30 percentage points higher than the national average. And also regarding earning a PhD at a rate nearly 75% higher than the national average, the national STEM average as well. So there are successful programs out there. We just need people to be more knowledgeable about it. And also regarding becoming an ally, there are different resources. I could put them in the chat for you all so you can look at it yourself. But one last thing. So in 2016, I was in the SPIE conference on optics and photonics, and a question was asked in the town hall to the CEO at that time, Dr. Eugene Authors. And the question was asked, how can we promote optics outreach in other third world countries? And he said, even before we start thinking about going to other countries, we need to reach the inner city Black and Latino communities first. Now, this encouraged me a lot because I thought that I was the only one at the conference. I was the only Black American at the conference. And coming from a neighborhood, yes, a bad neighborhood where people have written the kids off as too unintelligent, or they don't have the propensity to learn physics, I'm saying that that is not true, because I'm living testimony of that. The kids in those environments, they need the consistent encouragement and the opportunity. There are geniuses that come out of the hood. So I want to thank you, everybody, for listening to me today. Please follow me on Twitter handle Black in Optics to learn more. Send me an email if you have any questions. And I'd like to leave you all with this final image. It took the mathematical genius of a Black woman to get all of us to reach the stars. So thank you very much. And I just hear if you have any questions for me.
We have I was going to say, we have a hand up, and also if you can put questions in the Q&A. I think the main chat is somewhat disabled during these, but I did see a hand go up. But before, I just want to say I have to run to class, and apologies for that. This was an amazing talk. Thank you so much for sharing your story. A little bit of a loaded question and perfectly timed because of the start of the Blazar group. I was just wondering if you could say a little bit about your involvement there, because I know that's just started. So that might be something students want to get involved in.
Well, so first of all, I just found out about the Blazar group like last year, and I thought that it would be an awesome thing to be a part of, because they are people that stem out from the bridge program. So they're just continuing their success at other universities right now. Or I think Don Dixon, he's still at Vanderbilt. But the thing is that we are a brand new group but we want to support each other in our endeavors. And so I think that the Bridge program is just, again, we're able to share the success of the Bridge program wherever we go. And this is just a small group of that Bridge program. So we all have a different experiences. We can all share that same cathartic feeling that the Bridge program really it really was a huge support in our lives.
A couple of comments in the chat of people appreciating what you've said. I don't see any hands up for questions. We can allow you to talk or put a question in the chat box if anyone would like. Raise your hand.
My friend Don just says, "Do you have any questions about Blazar? Just email him at his email."
When Jay has his hand up, I swear I have class that started a minute ago. I swear I'm going to go, but this is way more interesting. Jay has his hand up, and I think, oh God, I'm so bad at the running the webinar. If we can unmute him and have him talk, or if not, you could put it in the chat box. But really, I have to go. Thank you so much again.
Thank you so much.
I just raised him up as a panelist, so he should be on right now.
Okay, I think you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. I found that the examples that you gave, I need to hear more examples. You don't have to give me more examples right now, but I need to keep hearing examples so that it becomes second nature to me to notice the things that I do that I could improve. My question is about your job at Boston Electronics. Can you tell us more about that opportunity? Sounds interesting.
Sure. And so my particular, someone just answered. Okay, my particular position is just application specialist. So it's much more than just being a technical salesperson. Like I said before, we're able to just work with our different customers, our clients, seeing what they actually need. Sometimes when we go through orders and everything, we want to have an interest in what the clients are working on. So when we start develop that conversation with the clients and they talk about the research, we may be able to suggest a different thing that they may need in order to have the maximum output that they may need for the particular research goal. So like I said, it's more so in application engineering. I just like being in a position where I'm also being in a place where I'm able to continue, thinking technically, but I also love that face-to-face interaction I have with people. So that's why I'm particularly, working in industry at this position right now.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that customers can really benefit from a person who combines a strong technical background with appreciation for their business and enthusiasm for trying to help them solve their problems. So yes, I like hearing about good industry opportunities for PhDs.
Oh, definitely, because a lot of times when people think about, moving forward after the PhD, they always think of a one-track solution. You have to go to academia. No, you can branch out into industry and to be a positive influence on that particular community as well. It doesn't mean you have to show off your brain. Definitely not, because you always need to be, to increase your knowledge in whatever aspect you're doing. But I believe for me, I love, like I said, that ability to talk to people. A lot of people who do our PhDs don't really like talking to people, but that's just different from my opinion.
All right, Michael, I wonder if you could say a little more about your transition to graduate school as an undergrad, especially thinking about students out there. What or who or how did you get drawn to going to graduate school, and what would you say to people considering that option?
Well, again, my particular route, even before I joined the Bridge program, I wanted to go to grad school because I this will sound really cheesy, but this is honestly my reason. I wanted to be an image of hope for students, to say that they were able to go the distance and get the doctorate, and then I'll be able to go back into my old community and say that I came from this street, I came from this neighborhood. It doesn't matter where you started, it doesn't matter where you finish. And so that's why the main motivator for going to grad school. So it's important for students to know on your why, your reason why, like why you wanted to, go to grad school. Because honestly, if you really want to, you can go out making money even with a bachelor or a master's degree. But it's a matter of like, what is the main purpose of you going? The PhD may not be for everybody, but it certainly was for me.
Great. What was it like going? I assume you've gone back to your neighborhood. What's it been like visiting and telling your story?
Well, I like going back to the Franklin Institute, mainly because I'm able to tell the students that, gone before me, that I, came through the program, so it's possible. And they're really bright going back there. It's just it's really surreal because I love giving back. Especially the people who helped me, to make sure that their investment in me wasn't lost.
Great. All right. Any other questions or comments? Anybody? See some people still around. Otherwise, thank you so much, Michael, for sharing, and we will try to follow up with sending some of these resources around that you posted for us, and of course this whole recording will be available online.